Hello, friends, and welcome to my new episode. Today, I'll be talking about a genre which is a huge personal favorite of mine, and also a genre which is, I must confess, a relatively later discovery for me in my film viewing days. The genre I want to talk about is film noir. Film noir is, it's a term which was probably coined in the mid 40s by French film writers who used this term to describe thrillers, primarily thrillers, made in black and white with a common underlying theme of crime and its consequences. And it also covered films which had a few set motifs like the crisscrossing of shadow and light, a rain drenched street, etc. etc. There were some very common elements used in these films, which came to be known as film noir, as described by these people. So I want to talk about film noir as a genre and some of my personal favorite films from this genre. Uh, Primarily, these films were written by hard candy authors like Daniel Hashmet and Raymond Chandler. They were the two prime authors whose works were made into a lot of film noir movies. And every director, I think, worth his salt, whether it's an Alfred Hitchcock or a Billy Wilder or a Stanley Kubrick, have at some point of their time in their career made some very good film noirs. And if we want to only restrict ourselves to directors who specialized in film noir, then the names of Fritz Lang and Otto Preminger are top of mind. They are the leading directors. Actors ranging from Humphrey Bogart and Edward G. Robinson and Barbara Steinweg, Alan Ladd, Veronica Lake. They were the prime stars of these movies. These movies primarily had their appeal and their significance in the 40s. Hollywood of the 1940s has a huge bunch of absolute classic film noirs. And, they stand the test of time because even today, if they are revisited, there are some great movies to pick up from there. What I have done for today's episode is I have picked out 12 of my favorite film noirs and present them to you. One of the first one that I want to talk about. These as usual, all my lists are in random order. They're in no particular order. So I'll just be talking about 12 films which I really love in film noir, not in any particular order. Just to clarify. So the first film I want to talk about is a 1947 film directed by Jacques Tourneur, and this one is called Out of the Past. Now, Out of the Past stars Robert Mitchum, Kirk Douglas, and Jane Greer in the lead roles. And it's an absolutely fantastic film. It's a gripping psychological thriller about a private eye who comes to a new town, for an assignment, for a case. And his case is to hunt for a particular man. And it's during the course of that hunt that his past catches up with him with some very grave consequences. It's an absolutely cracker of a film, Out of the Past, with magnificent performances by both Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas. Not to be missed. A great film noir. The next film I want to talk about is the 1952 classic French film, actually, this one is, directed by Jules Dassin, and it's called Refifi. To me, it's not just one of the greatest film noirs ever made, it's one of the greatest films ever made. It's an absolute brilliant movie which talks about an out of work, out of favor gangster who comes back from a term in prison to find that the world around him has changed. He is no longer what he used to be, and people don't seem to have any respect left for him. So he decides to show the world that he still has it in him, and he hires a few men in order to have a heist, in order to raid and rob the most heavily guarded jewelry store in Paris. That's what Refifi is about. and it's an absolutely fantastic movie. There is this one particular scene in Refifi, which is the heist scene. It lasts about 12 or 13 minutes on screen, and during that entire scene, there is not a single spoken word or a single note of music. 12 or 13 minutes of complete silence when the robbery is taking place. It's one of the most gripping sequences I've seen in cinema. And believe me, you will not miss the absence of the spoken word or music during that scene. It is so gripping. Refifi by Jules Tassin is a must-watch if you want to explore film noir. The third film I want to talk about is yet another classic, which has gone down in the history of Hollywood as one of its greatest films. It's directed by Billy Wilder, and it's a 1950 classic, Sunset Boulevard, starring William Holden and Gloria Swanson. It's a superb movie. It charts the tale of Norma Desmond, who used to be this huge superstar in the silent movie era, and her fall from grace and her decline once talkie films started. And the story is about Norma Desmond trying to regain her stardom and going to any lengths to regain that stardom. It's a fantastic award-winning performance by Gloria Swanson as Norma Desmond. The other good thing about Sunset Boulevard is it has a lot of cameo appearances by superstars from the silent era, including people like legends like Buster Keaton. It's a must-watch. It's one of Billy Wilder's greatest movies, and a very important benchmark in the history of film noir. The next movie I want to talk about is called The Big Sleep, which is directed by Howard Hawks. I think Big Sleep came in 1946 and stars the evergreen pairing of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Big Sleep is taken from a novel written by Raymond Chandler, and it's classic film noir in every sense. It's complicated, it's got a complex and intricate plot which can really be confusing at times to follow, but it all ends up to a fascinating and fabulous climax. A great movie to watch. In fact, there's this little trivia about The Big Sleep, that at one point in time during the shoot of the film, the director Howard Hawks was very confused with the script, and he called up the writer Raymond Chandler to ask him, Raymond, can you tell me why was the driver murdered? And Raymond Chandler had a thought, and he said, I can't remember, it's too complicated. So that's how complicated the script was of Big Sleep, and it worked wonders because it's so brilliantly depicted by Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, apart from their obvious on-screen sizzling chemistry. But it's yet another classic from the vaults of film noir, The Big Sleep, directed by Howard Hawks. The next movie I want to talk about is yet again a Billy Wilder classic. It's called The Double Indemnity, and it is, I think, perhaps the first film noir I had seen. Before that, I had no clue what this genre was about, and what I was expecting to see. I had no clue about anything. I simply watched it because I had read a lot of good things about the movie, and it was directed by Billy Wilder. It had a very good star cast of Fred MacMurray and Barbara Steinweg, along with Edward G. Robinson. So I said, it looked safe enough for me to watch, and oh boy, what a movie. An absolute cracker of a film about this insurance agent who who combines with this provocatively dangerous housewife, played by Barbara Steinweg, who plans and plots her husband's murder to take advantage of a double indemnity clause in his insurance. And how the two of them plot is what the movie's about. And then comes Edward G. Robinson, who is an investigator for insurance fraud, and he smells something fishy. And the cat and mouse game that follows is what Double Indemnity is about. It's an absolutely superb movie. And there's this amazing line which I had read about Double Indemnity, written by the great Roger Ebert. And he said that the film is not about their love or their passion or their greed or their crime. The film is actually about their behavior, and how apt and how true. This deep psychological insight that some of these films offer into the human mind and why they want to commit the crimes they do is what makes film noir as a genre so fascinating and so exciting. Yet another fabulous film by Billy Wilder, Double Indemnity. Do watch it if you haven't. The next film on my list is relatively lesser known, despite being a brilliant film. And this film is directed by a gentleman called Richard Fleischer, and it stars Charles McGraw, Mary Windsor, and Jacqueline White in the lead roles. The movie is a 1952 film called The Narrow Margin, not to be confused with the 80s Narrow Margin, which starred Gene Hackman. This is the Charles McGraw Narrow Margin from 1952. It's a fantastic movie. It's a cat and mouse game inside a train where a widow of a gangster is being shifted from one city to another to testify against the mob. And she is protected in the train by Charles McGraw, who's a cop. And the gangsters are also in the same train, trying to find her and eliminate her. An absolutely superb movie and a must watch. It's so gripping and taut, and there's never a dull moment, and it's so well made. The Narrow Margin by Richard Fleischer. Brilliant movie to watch. The next movie on my list is not just a huge personal favorite, but it's perhaps the most underrated movie from this particular list that I have. It's a movie called The Scarlet Street, directed by Fritz Lang, and it has Joan Bennett and the inimitable Edward G. Robinson in the lead roles. The same pairing of Edward G. Robinson, directed by Fritz Lang, has a more famous and better known movie called The Woman in the Window. But personally, I prefer Scarlet Street. Scarlet Street is such a superb movie. It's about this man who's middle-aged and going through a sort of a midlife crisis, unsure of himself, hesitant, and full of self-doubt, lacking in self-esteem. And his chance encounter with this woman, this young girl, who brings out the best in him, who encourages him, motivates him. And as we gradually find out, all for an ulterior motive. And it's such a brilliant movie, Scarlet Street. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but do get a chance. Do see the movie if you get a chance. It's a movie you won't regret watching. It's a beautiful movie. Absolutely stands on the stupendous performance of Edward G. Robinson. He is simply brilliant. Do watch it in case if you haven't. Scarlet Street, directed by Fritz Lang. The next film I want to talk about is directed by Nicholas Ray and is called In a Lonely Place. It stars none other than Humphrey Bogart and Gloria Graham. It's a film noir. Yes, it's a film noir. It has elements of crime in it. But what I like about In a Lonely Place is more than just being a crime film, or more than just being a movie about murder and its consequences and the investigation as to who committed the crime. It's a little deeper than that. It's about human beings and their psyche and their personalities and their hidden secrets. Humphrey Bogart plays the role of Dixon Steele, which is, I think, one of my favorite on-screen names for any hero. Dixon Steele. I mean, the name itself sounds so cool and happening. So Humphrey Bogart plays Dixon Steele, who's an author, but a very temperamental author with, all the flaws that, anger and arrogance and all that have. So he's that kind of a man, and he's accused of murder and murdering a woman. And the only one who can perhaps save him is Gloria Graham, because she might be just the alibi he wants, who can prove that he didn't commit the murder. And then the relationship between Gloria Graham and Humphrey Bogart is what the movie's about. The movie has one of my favorite ending lines where Dixon Steele says that I was born when she kissed me, I died when she left me, and I lived just those few weeks she spent with me. Absolute cracker of a line. And Humphrey Bogart is mind-blowing as Dixon Steele. One of my all-time favorite film noirs, In a Lonely Place, directed by Nicholas Ray. Don't miss it. The next film I want to talk about again is slightly lesser known. It's got Barbara Steinweg and Van Heffling, and in his first ever lead appearance or screen appearance, Kirk Douglas. It's a movie called The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. Again, quintessential film noir. Again, complicated plot with lots of twists and turns. But it has one of the best twists that I have seen in film noirs towards the end of the movie. The Strange Life of Martha Ivers might be underrated, but should not be ignored according to me. Do watch it. It's a brilliant movie. At number 10 is the 1946 crime thriller directed by John Huston. It's called The Asphalt Jungle, and it has Sam Jaffe and John McIntyre in the lead roles. The Asphalt Jungle is perhaps the blueprint for later heist movies like the Ocean series, Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. The blueprint of that lies with Asphalt Jungle. It's the original, where a gangster plans out robbing a jewelry store with hired hands and hired helps, each of them specializing in a particular thing. And it's a great movie. It's one of the true American classics. And if you're fond of heist movies, Asphalt Jungle should be there in your list to watch. As an interesting trivia, there is a certain Norma Jean who is credited as Norma Jean, making one of her first on-screen appearances in Hollywood. It was one of Marilyn Monroe's earliest screen appearances, and as I said, she's billed and credited as Norma Jean, her real name. After Asphalt Jungle, the next film I want to talk about is a British film called The Blue Dahlia, and it stars a very famous pair of that time, of that era, Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake. And it's another classic. It's about Alan Ladd, who's a Marine and who comes back from his duty to find out that his wife is having an affair with someone else. An altercation follows, after which he leaves the house, and the next morning the wife is found murdered. What happens is what Blue Dahlia is all about. Fantastic movie. Again, it has all the trappings of film noir, including complex plot twists and some amazing photography and great background score as well. Blue Dahlia is one of the films from the 40s you shouldn't be missing if you're fond of this genre. Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake in Blue Dahlia, directed by George Marshall. A must-watch according to me. The last film on my list is a film which I had heard about the most before I saw it. When I heard about the movie, I didn't even know that it was a film noir or anything like that. But I kept hearing the name a lot whenever I read about movies from that period. And it's a movie directed by Tay Garnett called The Postman Always Rings Twice. And the name fascinated me, and I said, wow, that's quite a strange name for a movie, isn't it? And I eventually got down to seeing the movie when once I read about film noir and some of its great movies. And it has John Garfield and Lana Turner in the lead roles. And it's a fantastic, it's a classic film noir. I mean, if you see The Postman Always Rings Twice, right from the story to the execution to the climax, it's just a classic film noir which has everything that a textbook for film noir is meant to have. And according to me, along with Double Indemnity, where Barbara Steinweg played the lead role, I think Lana Turner in The Postman Always Rings Twice is one of the strongest portrayals of a femme fatale. I think she is the backbone of the movie and is absolutely brilliant as the wicked and scheming and conniving wife who plans everything that she does plan in the movie. Do watch it. I'm sure you'll like it. And there are plenty of other movies which which are favorites of mine as well, but I've missed out on this list because I wanted to restrict this to 12 and not go beyond that. I can actually name another 12 which could easily find place in this list of mine. But I leave you to explore more film noirs. Do watch the ones that I've recommended in case you've not seen some of these. Most of them are available on YouTube or some of the OTTs. Do watch them if you can, and if this is a genre you like, let me know in the comment section. I'll be happy to do a part 2. That's all for this week, and until the next time, bye for now.